Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into the classic for loop in JavaScript, one of the most important tools for repeating code. Now first I want to cover what exactly is a for loop. And a for loop essentially is a loop that lets you run a block of code multiple times, counting or iterating as you go. It's super handy when you know how many times you want something to happen. And so I want to go over the basic syntax of this. And here it is. Now with the for loop, we have the word for followed by parentheses in curly braces. And first I want to cover the parentheses. Now the parentheses is going to have three parameters. You have the three parts essentially. So you have the initialization, and that's where you set a starting value. Often that's going to be, let I equal 0. I for index, it's going to start at 0, and often, the default just I equals 0, assigned to a value of 0. Then you have the condition. This keeps the loop running while this is true. So, while this is true of, let's say I is less than 5. So I is 0. The condition is, as long as I is less than 5, keep running this loop. And then you have update, how often you want to update this initialization variable. And in this case, update could be like I++ to increase. It's going to serve as a counter, you can say. So you have the starting point, you have the condition, and then you have the condition as long as this is valid, it's going to keep running. And then you have the update for how you want to get closer to the ending of this condition. And then within the curly braces, you're going to have some specific code run repeatedly. And so I want to show you in Visual Studio Code and the browser what exactly happens. And so let's go first and cover this first example. Okay, and so here we can look at this first. We have the for word declared first. We have it written, followed by the parentheses we talked about, curly braces. We have the code for the what we want to run repeatedly, and then we have a certain breakdown of how we want this to run. So we have let I equals 0, assigned to a value of 0, we are creating a variable, a starting point. We have a condition of how long we want this to continue to run for. So we want it to keep running until I is less than 5. So when it's not less than 5 anymore, we want this to stop. And then we want to increment by 1 each time. So we start at 0, and we have console.log the count, and we're going to push back in the console I. And so we're actually going to see this. And so what you should see in the console is going to be 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's quickly go through how that works. So essentially we have a starting point of 0. It's gonna run once, so we're gonna throw back in the console 0. We're going to then increase, after we've done this code, we're going to increase by 1, and then we're going to go again. We're going to say, oh, we increased by 1. Is it less than 5? Yes, it is, and so let's do it again. And that's 1. Still less than 5, we're going to do 2, 3, 4. After this part, we're going to increase to 5. And at that point, 5 is no longer less than 5. It's equal to 5. And so at that point, we're going to jump out of this for loop. We're all done there. For loops are also perfect for going through arrays. And I want to show this example as well. Now with an array, it's essentially a collection of items. And here we have, the variable fruits assigned to an array of items. We have apple, banana, cherry. And we want to go ahead and run through these items and then put those in as a message in the console. And so we're using a for loop again. The for loops always start with this. It starts with the for, followed by parentheses of we're setting up the conditions, the parts of the for loop. We start at 0. Every array is going to start at 0. It's not going to start at 1, and so that's why we're setting the index to 0. We want to keep going until we get to the end of the array, and to get to the end of the array, it's fruits.length. So we're putting that. I is less than fruits.length. We want to keep going. And then we want I to increment by 1 each time, just like we did before. Only this time we're now dealing with arrays. And so we'll see that first, we start at 0. So that's the first part of the array. We get back apple. Then we increment by 1. We get back banana. We get back, 2. We put back cherry. And then at that point, we get to 0, 1, 2, 3. We are now, no longer less than the fruits.length. The length of fruits is 3, 1, 2, 3. And so we're equal to that. And so that's when we're going to hop out of this for loop. Now I want to go over a practical example of another option, so you get a better idea of how this is used in the real, everyday situation, such as your own website you might have. And so instead, we're going to use this example. And we're not seeing anything in the console, and we're actually going to see things in the browser here. And I want to go over this. So let's go ahead and shrink this. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And we can just go ahead and close this as well. Okay, so let's go over what we have here. Essentially, we have two variables. We have actions, save, edit, and delete. So we're using an array. We have a container, which we get from our HTML. So in our sandbox environment, we're in sandbox JavaScript, but we're also, if we hop into HTML, it's just some boilerplate. But what we've done is, in addition to linking to our external script, we are also adding a div with an ID of button container. And we're going to use this button container to add some buttons. Now with this code, we are creating 3 buttons labeled save, edit, and delete, and adding them to our page within the container. Now I want to go over, why would we do such a thing? What's the benefit of this? So, using JavaScript to create buttons versus, let's say you can think of, why can't we just create this in HTML? Using JavaScript to create buttons lets your website adapt to changing data. So, for example, if you have let's say a list of actions from a server or a database, you can build the buttons dynamically without writing them all by hand. You can create hundreds of thousands of buttons easily without cluttering up your HTML. So that's the benefit. And it also lets you show or hide buttons depending on the user roles or permissions. So in some cases, you might have an admin side of your website that you don't necessarily want to show all these certain buttons that, might be, you don't want the normal user to see these. These are only available on the admin side, save, edit, and delete. Let's say a blog post, for instance. And so those are just on the admin side. So essentially, you're reusing this code to generate buttons anywhere on your site, which can be really, really useful and reduce redundancy. Save, edit, and delete are super common because they represent a core action you might use on your web application, and it lets you manage data within a database. And this idea of managing data is this idea of CRUD, so creating, reading, updating, and deleting within an application or a project. Buttons like this could be used, for instance, for a user profile where they update their information or delete their account. You can use it for updating blog posts, creating or deleting them as well. Or, like I mentioned, an admin dashboard is, a great place, such as, managing users, products, or orders. Now, another thing I want to mention with for loops is, in addition to the normal here, so we have the normal way of running up, from 0 to 5, essentially. You also can go backwards. You can do, instead of plus, you can go minus, and you can go in reverse order. That's another option. And be sure as well for your loops conditions, make sure it eventually stops. So you don't want it to have run forever. Otherwise, you're going to get, an stack overflow. You don't want that. So you want to go ahead and make sure this is going to reach this condition. And that's it. That's everything for the for loop. It's just a brief introduction. be sure to practice this on your own, and in future videos we'll look to dive into this even further. So thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.